jump in. Thank you, Don. And so this is Democracy in a Box, and what we're trying out here, we're always feeling like civil conversation is at the root of everything we want to achieve, everything we want to do. And so we're constantly exploring and experimenting with ways to bring people together in civil conversation and talk to each other and get people thinking about things. So we want to try using the Rotary four-way test, mainly the four-way test, but also we're calling it, the Rotary 478, the four-way test, the 7 areas of focus and the 8 pillars of positive peace. And we want to take topics related to mostly democracy and run those through the 478 framework as a way to examine those topics in a nonpartisan way and to spur conversation, spur thought. And so our topic that we chose, I think Anna kind of pitched us today, was sustainability. So we're going to kind of dive in here and just start going through it. There's no, Don and I were talking before, there's no failure in the conversation as far as you all go. You can't get it wrong or say the wrong thing. Can't do it wrong. It's a very informal structure. So what I'll do is I'll kind of guide us through the first, the four-way test, and just get your thoughts related to the questions of the four-way test connected with sustainability. And so the first question in the four-way test is it the truth? And I am, so now just thinking about sustainability, is it the truth for you? Do you have any, it doesn't have to be something, you don't have to come up with something to say. If it feels, clear to you, you can say yes, it's, that feels like the truth. But if you have another thought on it, we would love to hear it, and maybe it will spark some discussion. So let's start with you, Jane, if you're there.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Am I putting you on the spot too much, or do you have anything to share?
I am. I'm kind of on the spot. I just came running in. I'm a little out of breath, and I ran back in the kitchen to get my phone, so I didn't hear your question. But if you give it to me, I'll do my best.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being so willing to participate. So the question is, we're using the Rotary four-way test to examine a topic, and our topic is sustainability. And the first question in Rotary's four-way test is it the truth? And if you, I think we're going to try to kind of move through it with consensus. And so if everyone just feels, okay, sustainability is the truth, that makes sense to all of us, then we can move on to the next question. But if you have any other thoughts about it, or if you're inspired by the question, then I welcome anything you have to share.
I'm not sure what you mean by the truth. Do you mean, is it possible? Is it an ultimate truth? I mean, can you flesh that out a little?
Absolutely. So I really like what you said. Is it possible? I think that kind of applies here. I think there are times when Rotary is probably asking, is it the ultimate truth, or is it the literal truth, depending on what Rotary is examining. But here I really like the idea of, is it possible? So yeah, is sustainability possible?
Yeah, I think we've just embarked on a period of unsustainability that, it's only happened, 5 other times in history. So it sure seems like sustainability is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like it's the way of things, unimpeded.
Yeah, and just for my knowledge and curiosity, you said we embarked on unsustainability, uh, something that's only happened 5 other times in history, I think is what you said. Would you go into that a little more?
Oh, I'm just thinking of the great extinctions. And it seems like what I understand is we're in the 6th one. And I think if you're talking about environment, I mean, I've just literally fallen into your group here, but if you're talking about environment, that's what I'm addressing. Are you talking about government?
Well, we were actually talking about it. Actually, Don, would you like to jump in here because you gave a great overview of how sustainability is, I think you said environmental, economic, and social.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have missed that in the first few minutes.
Not at all, not at all. I was
Oh.
talking to Don before we started.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I think the purpose of our conversations, and hopefully ongoing conversations, are the interconnectedness of all of this. Rotary, the larger concept of peace, as in the 8 pillars of positive peace that are in that table. We can get to that later. I know a lot of times when there's a discussion about the 4-way test, and because definition of truth has been mutated and co-opted, and alternative truth and things like that, I think it's okay to maybe skip over is it the truth question. And I know a lot of times that with something as big as this, or if the question is difficult enough, I think it's okay to take a pass on is it the truth and go to the next question. And a lot of times that will help answer the truth question, if that makes sense.
Sounds great.
Or as Michelle just said in the I think climate change is the truth. I don't know if we want to get into that one, but the whole idea of sustainability in everything, and this is where we're talking about a sustainable whereas not too long ago, whether or not we had a sustainable government in this country was more of a hypothetical. So I think truth is such a loaded word right now. I think we could, Zachary, I'm gonna throw it back to you. So
Yeah. I think what we can do, we can move on to the second question in the 4-way test. And if anyone has any thoughts about the truth, related to sustainability, then feel free to bring them up when you share. But we can move on to the second question, which is it fair to all concerned? And of course, I can't personally think of ways it feels fair to me. I don't feel I don't have anything coming up in me where I'm like, well, it may not be fair to some people here. But Michelle, you've thrown some great things into the chat, like a great optional question on the truth, is like, climate change is the truth, as an optional question. So would you like to speak now to is it fair to all concerned? I know you have a lot of experience in this area. So I think you can really help us kickstart the conversation.
Is it fair? So if we're talking about sustainability, if we put it across the globe, if we say, if we all move towards sustainability, is that fair to all concerned? Yes, because we have complete division within that space right now with climate change and environmental injustice. So if we're talking about environmental and injustice, it's definitely the way that it's set up right now is definitely not fair to all concerned. So if we move towards sustainability for all and really look at it from that perspective, I think that then that is fair for all concerned. If we move towards sustainability for all or climate action for all. And in the environmental movement, for the majority of my career, we were not inclusive. So not that we didn't try to be, but we didn't actively pursue and take the 20 extra steps to making sure that we were being inclusive of all communities. And I think we're now, you know, the movement within the environment has been to be way more inclusive and fair for all.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yana, would you like to, if I'm getting your name right, Yana Kobel, would you like to share anything on that question? And the question again is it fair to all concerned?
Oh, I was just listening in. It's my first time here. Yeah, I think what's, how do I begin? Yeah, at the moment we're, I think, on a path that is definitely not fair to everyone. There's a lot of social inequality. And yeah, I think if we want to be sustainable in all parts, it should be fair to everyone. I don't know if I got the question right. I was just in the middle of typing something when I was thrown out of the conversation, so didn't get the question. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. No, that's perfect. Steve, go ahead.
And Zach, let me, I promised John, I invited her to the Zoom, and I promised her she wouldn't have to talk or see anybody because so but
Oh,
let me
I'm so
introduce
sorry,
her.
Yana.
Yana is a good friend of mine. She's started an organization called Sea and Straws, and I wanted to introduce her to Michelle Thatcher because I think there's a really good fit there. But she's working on programs here in Panama, but she's right now at home in Germany with her parents. So, did you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Steve. And my apologies, Yana. I will let you I will let you jump in anytime you want.
And real quick, Don, I wanted also to introduce.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I will. Yana, if you want to participate at any point, just you know, send something in the chat or or speak up. Please join in any time, but I won't pull you away from what you're doing anymore.
Yeah, all good, all good. Thanks very much.
And Zach, I wanted to introduce you also to Julie. Julie is she's coming in from Oregon. She's one of our Rotarians in our club. She lives in Oregon, and her daughter is the youngest Rotarian probably in the world. And her and some other members will be coming to Panama next in a few weeks to work on our reef project, our tree project, and a lot of sustainability programs. So I asked her to chime in today and just kind of see all the amazing things you guys are doing. So those are my introductions.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. That's great. And thank you, Julie, for joining us. And Julie, I think we do know each other a little bit. Is there anything, Julie, that you would like to share on this subject and this question of is sustainability fair to all concerned? Oh, I think Julie, I think you're on mute.
You're muted.
I'm soaking it all in. I will be a listener this time. And after a little bit more coffee and education, I will have all sorts of intelligent things to say next time.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julie. Okay, so Steve, is there anything you want to share? Anything you want to chime in here?
No, I'm just, I was telling Don yesterday, I'm just so proud of you guys. I wanted to, how Facebook pops up your memories from 2 years ago. Yesterday, it popped up the Democracy in a Box team going to Washington, D.C. And I was just thinking to myself, what vision you guys all had for getting involved with this, because we had no idea what the last year or two would bring us. And we really need this program now more than ever. And that's why I want to really get people engaged in civic civility and conversation. So anyway, that was my thank you. So proud of you guys. Great job.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you and Don kind of co-founding this and kind of having the vision for me to jump in on. So I think now, Jane, is there anything you would like to say on this question of is it fair to all concerned?
I'm here. I'm just thinking.
Absolutely.
I'm a little flummoxed too. I have to say I didn't get the attachment with the 4 points, or I'm not seeing it anyway. And is it fair to all? I just can't imagine that it is, but it just seems obvious to me. It's hard for me to, it just seems, you mean our democracy, our world, our social, our humanness, and the way we interact. This is how out in left field I am. I'm sorry. Here, I'll turn on my video so we can see each other.
Hi, very nice.
Hi. Maybe I should just be listening too, but
if I can jump in for a second, Jane, I'm sorry we kind of dropped you in the deep end with no forewarning. If I could just ask a couple of questions, there's nothing worse than answering a question with a question. But I think that, this just a little background, how this came about was we wanted to do an experiment where as a small group of hopefully an intergenerational group, we could take on any question, no matter how difficult, and then practice speaking about it civilly. And we decided, well, the best way to warm up was with some things that probably most everyone agrees on. A couple of weeks ago, Zachary and I had a discussion on universal basic income, which really ties into, also we wanted to practice using the principles of Rotary, the 4-way test, the 7 areas of focus, and the 8 pillars of positive peace, to use it as a framework for the discussion. And Anna, one of our past interns and current members, brought up the idea of sustainability, and the example she gave, which might help us kind of keep this between the rails, because sustainability is such a huge topic, was just the practicality of attaining sustainability in this country. And Michelle brought up a great point about the you know, the wide range of experience and how many people just aren't even really, this is not even something that's even on their radar. And so the parallel to that, I think, is what we're feeling with democracy, is when we try to talk to people about getting involved politically or civically, we hit a brick wall, because most people our age have forgotten everything they learned in high school civics, and they're not teaching it in the schools now. And so there's almost a remedial type of discussion you have to have. So I'm just going to ask the question about sustainability is, you know, how do we even define sustainability? And how do we define fair to all concerned? I think there's no question that if we look at it globally, then we have a lot of work to do as far as attaining something that is even mildly fair to all concerned. If we expand the idea of sustainability to future generations, then absolutely fair to all concerned means sacrifices by the current generations if we're going to leave future generations with a livable planet. I just answered my own question, but I want to.
I think that's great. So Don, you're narrowing the kind of narrowing it to our country, or the United States of America, achieving sustainability as a good. That's the example that Anna gave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good.
Don't you have to have agreement that there is a lack of sustainability in order to make that happen?
I think that's a great point. Maybe that's something. I think most of us here on the call have agreed that there is a lack of sustainability. Would anyone like to speak to that, or maybe and talk about, because I know you're talking about here as a country, how do we have agreement that there is a lack of sustainability?
And just to touch upon the definition, one of the more agreed upon definitions of sustainability is the one that says that sustainability means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So just to reinforce what Don was saying about what does it mean, and that's a pretty agreed upon type of definition that most people look towards when they're looking at the definition of sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I don't think that we're not even close. There's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Michelle. I feel like that is so helpful for this discussion. Jane, is there more that you wanted to share on that? You know, I think you asked a really good question. I'd love to hear some lawn work happening outside, but is there anything else that you want to share on that great question that you asked?
You mean about agreement?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it does seem like we have the ideas and the technology, and but we just need the agreement, or the government that would operate well enough that what we agree upon could happen. So I know that's so profound, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this is what we read every single day and wring our hands about.
Yeah. And so, well, it's bringing up for me that in order to have sustainability, we have to have a sustainable government. And I'm thinking about the definition that you brought up, Michelle, meeting our own needs while I'm not going to get it exactly right here, while not taking that away from future generations. And it does feel like we're in a time right now where we're not even, as you're probably saying, Michelle, we're not even close, and we're not even meeting our own needs. We don't even have a sustainable government, in that we don't have a government where what we want as a majority of people happens. And so yeah, I really agree with that, Jane, and I feel like that's where we're at. Don, do you have any thoughts of where, I don't know, where we can continue taking this conversation? Because I'm looking at the other four-way test questions, and they, I feel like in this context we've answered them, and those are, will it build goodwill and better friendships? That's number 3. And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I feel like here in our conversation about is it fair to all concerned, we've reached a kind of a consensus on those subjects, so, or on those questions. So do you have any ideas of how we could where we could take this from here?
Yeah, I think the discussion itself shows us, it illustrates the interconnectedness between sustainability in all definitions of sustainability and our current state of affairs in this country. There's no question that what you said, Zachary, is there's a total disjoint between what the majority of Americans want and what our government does. Without getting into a long diatribe about money and politics, I think there's a great term called that's thrown around quite a bit, and it's called short-termism. And so if we're going to, of course, I would lobby for a discussion on all the isms that are thrown around. But if we're going to be totally honest, we live in a capitalist society, and we've monetized every single human activity. And the short-termism of our politics and the short-termism of our consumption, I think, is detrimental to any type of sustainability. And from a bigger picture, as far as if we're going to say fair to all concerned and beneficial to all concerned, if we're truly a majority, majority rule, we've got to get consensus from all corners of society, and because we are essentially a capitalist society, the business leaders have to get on board. I know a lot of Michelle's work ties to that directly. There are a number of other groups besides US Green Chamber that are doing the work of bridging the environmental movement with society as a whole. And that's a real challenge. I know Elizabeth Doty, a fellow Rotarian of ours, is doing a lot of work with corporate political responsibility, which absolutely ties into sustainability. So well, I don't want to filibuster. Go ahead.
No, I think that's really helpful, and it brings up the question for me of, you know, here we have consensus, but clearly there are areas of or there are people, you know, in our country where we need consensus from them on these questions of, is it fair to all concerned, is it beneficial to all concerned, because clearly maybe because of the there are clearly some people who feel that it would not be fair to them, or it would not be beneficial to them, because it would affect their I guess putting it simply, it would affect money. It would affect making money. And Steve, I see you unmuted. Is there anything you want to?
No, I just say because this is, you know, this is all new to everybody, and this is different exercises. I might recommend, and I'll send you this stuff, the explanations of the four-way test. And maybe if everybody had those prior to it, and you just go down and say, the second tenet of the four-way test is fair to all concerned. It serves as a beacon to Rotarians worldwide. Like any code, the test is a standard to which we aspire to adhere. As Rotarians, we strive to be fair in our interactions inside and outside of Rotary. I think when you expand that, and I think it would be good for everybody to actually read why the four-way test was written and by who. I really use it, and I think Don does the same thing. I have mine printed on the outside of my desk. So everything I do whenever I answer questions, I look up at the four-way test on my wall and I run down through it. And it really makes decisions easier. And so I think in future workshops like this is maybe to really explain the four-way test a little more before anybody signs in. And that way it helps with the whole mindset. Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense to me. And I don't know if you'd be willing, but I would love to hear a little bit more about why it was written, and whom it was written by, if you want to go into that.
Just give me 1 second.
And it sounds to me like I mean, I'm pretty new to Rotary. And it sounds like other people on this call are also new. And so Steve's been hammering in the idea to learn these you know, the seven, you know, the four-way test, and then all of the different areas of focus, which I know environment is one of them now, which is a very new one that just came about. But it is, and I don't do my homework as much as I should on Rotary. I just kind of went head deep into it. But one thing that has been stated over and over, and we now are realizing, is the power of Rotary. So Steve will say that to me so often, and there are so many people who've made such an impact, and this is such a great way to come into the space. And I think having a common language, I think the reason the four-way test is so important and what we're talking about is so important is that we need to understand what all of those other 1.2 million Rotarians have all agreed upon in some way, shape, or form. So if we can agree upon what they agree upon, and I say they just because I feel like I'm pretty new in the space, but if we can all agree upon, okay, here's a four-way test that we should run by anything. And so, oh, I know what the four-way test is, and we're using that same language, then we're just like one step closer to having an honest conversation with each other about other things. So maybe it's climate change, maybe it's sustainability. And that, you know, I think that that's why it's important to cover this right now. And so if we're all new to this, that it's not, you know, it's not like it's out there in left field of why would we be having these conversations? And especially in the political realm, which is the democracy in the box, we're so divided. So like, let's bring it back down to one, you know, here's 4 questions as far as like what we could run this by, because we as Rotarians can all agree upon this 4-way test as far as running things through. So just a little sort of maybe unique perspective from my angle of listening to Steve and being at Fed forced it for like 5 years. And I do get it now. I really do. And I don't have as many one-on-one conversations with people about Rotary, but I know our team has collective conversations about it. And we can make such a big impact if we leverage this, you know, this idea and framework.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate all of that. Steve.
Yeah, I was reading it. What I'll have to do is, what I'll do is I'll send something, because this is almost a page of the history of the 4-way test. So I'll add the link here in a second. It would be a long time for me to read it, but it's really, really beneficial in all the decisions I make. And I speak with a lot of Rotary clubs and nonprofits around the world. And most of the time, the first thing I do is pull out the 4-way test and tell them what they can expect from me when dealing with me and what I expect from them. And that's really been beneficial to me in the past. So.
And just so everybody knows, I just put a couple of PDFs, links to PDFs in the chat. One is our a Democracy in a Box banner that has the 4-way test, has everything in there. It's a 1-page. And then another one is a link to a 4-way test explanation from Dennis Wong, who is a founder of the Rotarian group for peace. So we're doing some crazy stuff here. We're trying to expand our definitions of sustainability, peace, and trying to tie in Rotary with democracy. It's a big chunk to take a bite of. But I know Steve and I have had many discussions about how much easier this is. And one of the big challenges we've had with discussing democracy is intergenerational discussions. And Rotary traditionally, in most people's minds, is a bunch of old white guys in suit and ties sitting around. And we've really tried to demystify some of that, because the more we learn about democracy and the more we learn about sustainability, this is something Rotary's been doing for a long time. They've taken a lot of leadership roles in this. The founder, one of the co-founders of CCL was a Rotarian. The United Nations was founded by Rotary, or they were instrumental in it. And one of the things that always amazes me is when I'm talking to young people about democracy or any topic, once we start talking about, it's like we'll get about halfway into it and we're talking about the Constitution, we're talking about civic engagement, and they all come back to tell me more about this 4-way test.
Interesting.
Because it's, and I've said for a while, if you have a working knowledge of the 4-way test and the Constitution, you can pretty much answer just about any question. But what I really like about this 1-pager that I just posted, that Dennis Wong came up with a few years back, was he ties the 4-way test in with conflict. I think he refers to it as conflict transformation. which is a different way of looking at trying to talk to each other in a civil manner. One of Rotary's 7 areas of focus they used to call it peace and conflict resolution. Is that right, Steve?
Yes.
And he kind of reframes it as conflict transformation, where instead of just getting through a difficult topic by truly listening and applying the 4-way test, you can get to the next level with whoever you're talking to. And you're truly building goodwill and better friendship by listening to the concerns. And I think that's a huge challenge when it comes to sustainability, because we have, anytime you talk to anybody, everybody comes at it from a different angle. And as Zachary said, if someone's basic needs aren't being met, they're not ready to talk about sustainability. So it's up to those of us whose needs are being met to take on a larger role. Steve, I think you sent me something about an article about what was referred to as climigration. And we have to throw out our idea of we're in our own little world, and in this country we're not going to have to worry about that. But as the effects of climate change continue to affect the entire world, we're going to feel it here, whether we want to deny it or not.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
looking
you.
at the-
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Jane. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at, Don had sent me this attachment. I was looking at it a different way, but this answers so many questions. So I'll be a little more on task here next time we meet. It's very interesting. The democracy in a box, the one sheet is what you guys are referring to, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you all. I think that helps us a lot. We need to give a lot more background information on 4-way test. I think it's really important, like Steve said, to know where, was it Paul Harris, was that 100 years ago that he came up with was it not quite 100 years ago that they came up with the 4-way test?
I believe it was 1946, if memory serves me correct. And it was
Long time ago.
by a Rotarian who had an aluminum company that was doing bad, and he had set the thing up. And it's a nice article, because again, it makes it really easy for me and my students. I teach all my students this at the beginning of the year, and they know how to work me. They'll say, Mr. Bender, we really feel this is fair to all concerned. And they'll go down when they propose a program to me, they know how to propose it using the 4-way test to where I have to say yes. And again, if all parties agree to work with the 4-way test, you understand each other better. And I've been pushing it for about a decade, so I really use it a lot, and people around me know how I use it, and so they know what to expect from me, and I expect them to respect me with the same way. So it's a great tool.
That's amazing.
Another definition of sustainability.
I did want to say one thing. Sometimes you have to go down through the test, because something that could be the truth might not necessarily build goodwill and better friendship. Honey, do I look fat in this dress? So you might skip one and go down to 2, 3, and 4, and then make your decisions based on the vote. There was a really good seminar in Toronto about that a few years at the in Korea, at the International Convention. But it was like, it went through the test and how sometimes the truth could actually hurt people. And so it was a different way, but it was a good exercise. I think what you guys are doing is perfect. You're going through issues and discussing it this way. So good job.
And I think, Steve, that and also what you said, Jane, it's a good segue into where do we want to take this discussion? I could see, where I feel like these could lead to really interesting conversations are to find possibly, very specific, possibly specific policies or specific proposals or ideas that we could run through the four-way test. It could still be related to sustainability if that's what everyone here is excited about. But Jane, is there, in imagining continuing a conversation like this or continuing working with a framework like this, is there anything that you would like to explore?
I would really like to understand, what you all are talking about who know this program. So I'm almost more interested in being a student for a little while than in the conversation. And even though the conversation is informing me. So that's what I'm looking for. That's probably what I'll do before I meet with you guys next.
Very good.
What you're talking about with what Steve is talking about that he uses with his students, and how to apply it to everything that's happening.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, that sounds good. Michelle, is there any direction you would like to see this conversation take if we continue it in the future?
Well, I think with the intersection of what you guys are doing with the democracy in a box, I think covering the corporate political responsibility that Dawn had mentioned, covering the intersection of our vote with, even we was talking earlier about the Global Climate Pledge, and at the very top, I always say the most important aspects of what you as an individual or you as a company can do is to get politically involved, because that's where we're going to make systemic change. So keeping that intersection at the forefront.
Amazing. So corporate responsibility and individual political responsibility.
Yeah, both political responsibility, I think would be a very interesting connection, because that's where a lot of people, when they think of their own personal choices, yes, we can go vegan. Yes, we can do lots of different things, which are super important. We have to do those. But at the very top of the list is really about being politically engaged on whatever number of voting regularly, voting for informed climate candidates, voting for positive climate initiatives, being engaged in that space at all times. I mean, that is the most important if we want to attain true sustainability, true climate action for all.
I love that. I think that's a really powerful direction to explore. Dawn, do you have any thoughts on where we take this next? How does that sound to you?
Well, I agree with everything that Michelle said, and I know I've had a number of conversations with a number of you on this call about. I'm always looking for a different way of looking at things, and one of the tenets of improv is yes and I think what Michelle said is a perfect example of that. It's individual actions, even if every individual in the world acted sustainably individually, it wouldn't be enough. And so it's like, can we reframe the way we look at all of the challenges that we meet, from sustainability to democracy, and it's in the interconnectedness of all of it. There's a working group that has come up with a 31-point proposal for making the country more politically and sustainable, and their main what they refer to it as our common purpose. And so I think that's where, if we look at everything, so much of what we hear is in social media and in mainstream media is, yes, but what about this? And when you read the comment section of any post that someone's made, it's always the negative. It's never yes, and it's yes, but, or, well, if you just fix gerrymandering, that will take care of it. Or if you just, if you just do a carbon tax, that'll take care of it. If you just do, if you just do term limits, that will take care of it. And I think what we all can kind of agree on is it's a bigger challenge than that, but it's all connected. Jane and I are here in the Midwest, and we see a lot of silos that hold grain. But I think a big part of what we can do is eliminate the silos within our own sphere of influence. There are a lot of groups there. We talked about this, Zachary. There are hundreds of groups in the country doing work of trying to expand civics and civility. And I think it's really important that we not impose tribalism when it comes to that and say, well, I'm not going to work with those guys because I don't agree with them 100% on everything. And I think I think Michelle can attest to this. There are probably 5 times that number of environmental groups working on sustainability, and the de-siloizing, if that's a word, I think would be instrumental in moving this conversation forward. And I think the nice thing about our Rotary connection is Steve has shown us over and over again that every major city and every small town has a Rotary club. And usually the people that are in those Rotaries are opinion leaders. And that by getting their ear and getting them on board with what we're with how we're trying to reframe all of this is the answer for sustainability in every definition.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, thank you, Don. And here I'm going to actually ask you something else here, because we are right on the hour, and I was just going to ask, are there any other questions that you feel like we need to cover, Don? I love the idea of maybe narrowing the focus a little bit, going for our next conversation, corporate political responsibility and individual political responsibility. And is there anything else that we need to discuss, Don?
Not that I can think of. I think Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more thing, and it's just kind of, it goes kind of back to, is it the truth and money in politics? I think I shared with Don and a few others. I was asked to run for the 48th seat in Congress next year against Michelle Steele.
In California?
Yeah, in California. And of course, Don, I turned that down. But one of the things I started researching about her was how many donations she gets from oil companies. And she gets 8 different commission checks from oil companies. And, you know, we just had the big oil spill out there. And, you know, is it the truth if someone's voting on something when they're making money to vote on it the other way? And we can take this to big pharma, we can take this to oil, we can take this to coal, we can do anything. And like my brother told me several years ago, point out anything that upsets you and you can lead it back to money in politics. So when we go back, is it the truth? Well, is it the truth if someone's donated $1 million to your campaign? Are you going to say the truth or what the $1 million is buying? And I think we've come up with the fact it takes 44,000 guesstimate a day to be reelected for Congress. So how can you be truthful with what is good for the planet and people if you're making $44,000 a day from a coal lobbyist or an oil lobbyist? So and that's kind of what I'd like to just educate people on. That's my 2 cents.
And can I just jump in since you mentioned the oil side of it? The reason that we are in the predicament that we are in is because of exactly that, of those votes being bought. But then when we're talking about the corporate political responsibility and the oil companies, I just got back from the Sustainable Brands Conference and Shell Oil was there as a sponsor. And they got completely lambasted on the last day by the youth group saying, you don't even deserve to be here. And right after that, I talked to the guy from Shell Oil and he says, oh, I didn't really know what to do. And, I don't think that they really understand, like, we all had to drive here or fly here to get here. And we all had to do these things. And this building is made of steel and, and all the resources that require oil. And I said, yeah, because you rigged the system. The system's been rigged by your dollars where we didn't have all of the time and opportunity to change the systems that were able to get us here. So that's the, so including the systemic changes that need to be made, because the oil companies will constantly come back and either say one or two things, and I say this, I had to get here, by flying there, but I didn't have any other options because they rigged the system. And that systemic change, because we could have had other alternatives. We could have had high-speed rail by now. We could have had, way more electric vehicles. We could have had so many other systems that were in place, but they rigged them, starting with who killed the electric car. They did, type of thing. So just keeping in mind that we can't get out of this unless we make systemic change within that corporate political responsibility. And they can't just point to one thing.
I'm going to have to sign off. I'm really sorry. I'll join you guys next time. I'll have a little more knowledge under my belt.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks
Great to be here.
Thanks for jumping in the deep end. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I know we're going over, but if I could just jump in on something that Michelle said, I totally agree. And I think that's what we keep coming back to, is that I smiled, but I also threw up in my mouth a little bit when I Googled sustainability. The first two links that came up were an ad for BP and for another oil company. And I think what we're trying to get to was this is a lofty goal of trying to bring all this together, but the challenge is that the only way we're going to affect change is by demanding that corporations behave more sustainably or if we're going to say, in fact, that corporations are people, then they need to start acting like responsible people. And the way we do that is through all forms of pressure. And that's a big challenge, I think, especially with a lot of people who are just getting into this, that it's it's not a binary. Yes, we have to fly places and we have to drive places. And we also need to change the system. We cannot expect politicians who are dependent on corporate dollars to change the system. This is where democracy comes in. This is where old hippies and young progressives and business leaders all need to work together to help with education as far as civics and sustainability. There are so many opportunities. Michelle and I just had before we got on, had a great discussion about some of the opportunities with technology and a sharing economy, and if we can help more people break the cycle of yes, but sadly, I'm old enough to remember the first Earth Day, and it's been a long time since Al Gore came out with An Inconvenient Truth, and we're still fighting. We're still talking about this, and part of it is the system that Michelle referred to is broken, and so we have to work on every aspect of it. It can be overwhelming, but we've got Steve Bender, and so he can take on a good portion of it, and we just need to do the rest.
Go, Steve.
Yay.
I love it. I really like the way that Michelle, thank you so much for sharing, and Don, you too. I really like the direction this conversation is taking. It's making me really excited to continue it in the future. I don't want to Yana and Julie, I know you're listening in here. I don't want to keep anyone hostage on the Zoom for too much longer. So everyone is free to go at this point. And I know Don, you said at some point we'd stop the recording, and then if anyone wanted to stay and continue talking, you're welcome to. But I just want to know that want you to know that you don't no obligation to be here at this point.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then if we want to continue, we can.